As I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, I let out a sigh. I was feeling nervous on my first day at a new high school. I just wanted to fit in with the background so I wouldn't get any attention. As I walked through the front doors, laughs and talk could be heard all the way down the halls. A lot of students gathered by their lockers to talk about the weekends that had passed. I looked around idly, trying to find a familiar face in the crowd, but not being able to. As soon as the first bell rang, everyone ran to their classes. I held on tight to my plan and took deep breaths to calm down. The paper said that homeroom was in room 216. After following the signs down the hall, I came around a corner and saw the room at the end. When I walked in, my teacher, Mrs. Johnson, stared at me with a mad face. She pointed to the only empty desk next to a tall boy with shaggy hair and said, "You're late, young man. Take a seat before I write you up." As I sat down and struggled to find my notes, a voice with a high nasal pitch cut through my ears. Nick said, "Hey, I'm Nick." "Are you new here?" His sharp eyes made me move in my seat. I said, "Yeah, I just started today, thinking that would be enough." Nick didn't seem to get the message, though. When he spoke, drool almost came out of the sides of his mouth. "Where are you from? I've been at this dump for a long time, so frickin' bored of the same old faces." I tried to change the subject by telling him the name of my old town. Nick seemed even more interested, which made me sad. "That's cool, dude. I need to show you around and show you all the cool spots." He leaned in close as if to tell her a secret. "Also gotta warn you who to avoid. Like Melissa over there, total slut. Heard she puts out for any dick that moves." It hurt my face how rude it was. I did not want to make trouble on my first day because of this guy. I tried to smile and say, "Thanks, but maybe another time." Thank goodness the morning announcements kept going, so I didn't have to talk to anyone else. Nick was excited to get up when the bell for first period rang. "What class do you have?" "I can walk with you," he asked with unwavering excitement. Looking down at my schedule made me feel bad, so I said math at the other end of school, but thanks. Then I ran into the crowd of kids, hoping to lose Nick in the action. I kept my eyes on the window during first period, ready for any sign of my unwanted shadow. My heart was racing. Nick was not to be seen, though. He might have gotten the hint after all. My shoulders felt a little less tense as I went to the second class without any problems. But then it was time for lunch. I looked around the cafeteria for an open spot while putting a small sandwich and milk box on my tray. I was disappointed that the only empty place was at a table with two other people, including Nick, who saw me and waved happily. As I reluctantly walked up, Nick started to introduce himself. "Brett, Lucy, this is the new guy I told you about." "What was your name again?" I asked. I called myself out loud in between bites of my limp sandwich. When Nick winked at me, it made my skin crawl. He said, like I said, "Those marching band losers think they're so cool. But we all know the real action is behind the gym, if you get what I mean." Lucy asked me what classes I had to try to change the subject. Nick spoke up loudly before I could answer. "Who cares about that? Hey guys, want to hear about the time Melissa Gregor gave Old Man Jenkins a BJ in the supply closet for an A?" He followed his rude words with a bunch of strange hand gestures. There was silence at our table as people in nearby groups looked at us. When Brett finally spoke, my ears were on fire all the way up to my head. "Dude, that's not cool. Stop talking like that, especially about people here," she told him. Lucy agreed and grabbed her tray. "I'm out. See you in English, Brett." As they walked away, Nick's face turned red with anger. "God, those prudes. You need to loosen up, new kid. We say it like it is around here," someone said. The bell rang, and I didn't have time to answer. As I hurried to class, though, I couldn't help but feel that this was just the start of Nick's annoying presence in my life. All through the night, I had bad dreams. In the back of my mind, shadowy forms were always getting closer, but when I woke up with a start, they were gone. It was getting light outside through my window shades by the third time I woke up in a cold sweat. I finally got out of bed because I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep again. As I went about my morning routine, I couldn't help but think about how bad things were with Nick yesterday. He seemed strongly drawn to me for some reason I didn't understand. Even though I was ignoring him, what could he want from the new kid who was trying to blend in? After getting ready, I went downstairs to make a simple breakfast. I was putting cereal into a bowl when I looked out the kitchen window. Seeing a flash of movement outside among the cornflakes caught my attention. Nick stood there in the side yard and looked at me with a strange grin. I stumbled back in shock and spilled milk all over the counter by accident. Nick was gone as quickly as he came into view when I looked again, due to the gloomy weather in the morning. I quickly ate my wet breakfast and ran outside to catch the bus. As soon as she stepped out onto the path, she saw Nick again. He was sitting comfortably against a tree across the street, as if he were waiting. "Is everything okay, man?" he said with a laugh. "You look kinda scared. How did you understand where I live?" I asked with squinted eyes and a tight grip on the straps of my bag. Nick didn't say anything. "Good guess. I'm just kidding around with you. I saw you get dropped off after school yesterday. I thought I'd walk with you today, if that's okay." He stood up straight and started walking down the path before I could say no. I had to follow behind because I had no other choice. On the whole trip, Nick kept talking about pointless things that I didn't care about. About halfway there, he suddenly went in a different direction and pulled me toward a small entrance I hadn't seen before. Just a quick cut, dude. As you can see, it's much faster than the main road. As I moved through the trees and bushes, I started to feel more and more uncomfortable. This was not at all the way to school. When I finally spoke up, Nick quickly told me to shut up. "Don't worry, we're almost there." I was shocked when I saw them burst through the brush. We were nowhere near the school grounds. I threw Nick hard while spinning on my heels. "What the hell are you talking about? Are you planning to steal my child?" His mood changed right away, and the smile turned into a frown. "Don't be mad. I'm just having fun. You should really loosen up and enjoy my company more." The first bell rang far away before I could answer. I ran quickly through the trees by myself, trying to remember how to get back to the main road as best I could. I knew I would be late. By some miracle, I made it to homeroom, out of breath, right before the last bell. Mrs. Johnson gave me an angry look and didn't say anything else. The rest of the day went on and on. I sat restlessly in every class, looking out the windows for any sign that Nick might be on school grounds. But the house looked like it was empty as usual in between times. I was more than ready to run home by the end of the day. But as I got closer to my locker, I saw a small piece of paper sticking out of one of the vents. The scrawl on it made my stomach drop when I pulled it out. "Same time tomorrow. I'll see you then, Nen." I quickly crumpled it up and pushed past the crowds of students to rush out the front doors. Sure enough, Nick was leaning against a lamppost when they turned the last corner and were out of sight. "Hey friend, how was school today?" I rushed past him without noticing him and walked as fast as my legs could take me down the path. But Nick kept up with me without any trouble. "Don't be that way, man. I was only having fun. You always look way too tense. You might feel better after taking a break." As I finally got to my street, I didn't hear his babbling. I slammed the front door shut and leaned against it, my knees close together. What did this strange boy really want from me? Why didn't he just leave me alone? It looked like my plan to blend into the background had gone horribly wrong. Now I had an unpleasant shadow that followed me everywhere I went. The weekend went by very quickly. I kept the blinds closed tight and tried to stay inside as much as possible. When I was in my room by myself, I had bad memories of Nick's creepy grin that morning as he peered through the window. I had trouble sleeping because I kept having shadowy dreams. I was tired by Sunday night, but I was also looking forward to the next school day. Nick had made it clear that he would not shut down his close chase if she said no. What could he want from me more than that? The unknown made my nervousness 10 times worse. As I pulled myself through the morning tasks on autopilot, dark rings appeared around my eyes. I got out of the house early to escape Nick's normal surprise attack, and I walked quickly down empty sidewalks toward the school grounds. I let out a sigh of relief when I finally got to the front doors without any problems. My break didn't last long, though. As I was leaving second period math class, I saw Nick waiting by my locker. "Hey there," he said hello with way too much energy. I walked by without saying anything and started turning the lock's combination very quickly. Nick, on the other hand, wouldn't be overlooked. "Hey, what's wrong with you? I'm just being nice." You could be thankful for a little while. His tone went from happy to cold in an instant, which made my skin shiver. Thank goodness the next period's warning bell went off before things got worse. As I ran off by myself, I didn't dare look back to see if Nick was following. The rest of the morning went by without another scary run. When lunchtime came around, I began to wonder if Nick was finally losing interest. But of course, as soon as I walked into the cafeteria, I saw him at our table from the other day, waving madly as if nothing had changed. As I forced a groan, I filled my tray and dragged my feet over. "Hey, guys," I said hello in a weak voice while slouched on the bench next to them. Brett gave a short nod, and Lucy just smiled back. While Nick was making a rude joke, Brett quickly spoke up. "Hey, stop it already. We need you to stop being such a creep." Lucy added in a stern voice, "I second that. This problem keeps coming up with you at this point." They both got up with trays in their hands before Nick could say anything. With a small wave, Brett told me, "See you in English." Nick and I were the only ones at the table, and there was a strange quiet. "Are you still going to come over after school? We can take a walk home together. I just wanted to let you know that you've been making me feel terrible. I thought we were going to be good friends." His sad puppy dog face made my skin crawl. "Nick, we're not friends." I finally found my voice and said through clenched teeth, "Don't bother me anymore, or else." That's when I stood up so quickly that my knees hit the table very hard. As I snuck off with the trash, Nick's cold stare sent a chill up my spine. It felt like holes were burning in my back. That afternoon, dark clouds started to roll in, giving the farmland a scary look. I ran home as soon as the school bell rang, cutting short my run times here and there. When I finally got to my street, I felt a wave of relief. But then I noticed something strange in the dark. There in my side yard, in the gloomy haze, I could just barely make out the outline of a figure standing still. As I got closer and squinted through the fog, I saw Nick's clear shape facing my bedroom window, smiling and waving nonstop. It made my stomach drop. I stopped in my tracks because I was so scared I couldn't move. Nick finally turned his head toward me, and that's when I snapped out of it. I ran the last few feet to lock myself safely inside. With my heart racing so fast, I didn't dare look outside again. I hoped this was all just a bad dream that I would soon wake up from. The storm outside kept getting worse for hours. When I first called the police, they didn't even bother to listen to my story about a neighborhood creep, because I didn't have any proof. It wasn't possible to relax while doing homework because things outside kept getting in the way. I almost jumped out of my skin when I finally heard thunder that covered up the sound of footsteps on my front door. Taking the nearest heavy thing as a shield, I crept over slowly to look outside. There was no one there, though. At least, that's what I thought until I jumped and saw a small folded note on my bedroom door handle. As I unfolded the wrinkled piece of notebook paper, my hands were shaking very badly. It said in the same messy handwriting as before, "Are you still having fun? Do you miss me? We should meet at dusk by the old quarry. Please don't make me wait. Nah." Fear gripped my lungs like a cold hand. With his creepy stalking and weird games, Nick had finally taken things too far. I wasn't going to give in to his dominating behavior any longer. He could have a fight if that's what he wanted. It seemed like the rest of the evening would never end because dark storm clouds kept rumbling above. Finally, when it got dark, I got my dad's old hunting knife out of the shed to keep myself safe and put it on my belt under my jacket. Then, without another second of doubt, I went out into the growing darkness. As I walked along the barely lit path through the trees and past several warning signs, I could slowly make out the old empty quarry. As expected, Nick could be seen leaning casually against a sagging barrier fence against the metallic gray sky. He said with a strange half smile, "There you are. I was beginning to think you gave up." As I kept my distance, I told Nick, "I'm only here to tell you to leave me alone once and for all. Why can't you understand simple words? You're not my friend, and I don't want to be with you. Go stalk someone else for a change." His smile finally turned into a mean frown. Nick growled, "No one tells me what to do." I decided we were best friends from day one. He then kicked the fence down and began to creep closer. "And I don't like it when people break their promises," he said. Lightning struck above, briefly lighting up his angry, dark face. With a rush of energy, I rushed forward and hard pushed him back. Despite the loud thunder, I yelled, "You lied, you crazy jerk. Get lost before I call the police." Nick, on the other hand, just laughed grimly and took something out of his coat pocket in response. The sight of a rusty switchblade shining out stopped my heart. He teased her with a grin while cutting the blade open with a snap. "You brought a knife to a knife fight. That's cute, but it's going to take more than that to scare me off now." I scrambled for my own gun, which was hidden in my belt because I was scared. When I saw Nick lunge without notice, I immediately slashed out with my hunting knife and yelled in pain. A disgusting squelch and warm liquid sprayed all over my face and jacket at once. I looked with fear at the foot, long hunting blade sticking out of Nick's stomach as I blinked past globs of blood. As he looked down in shock, his switchblade slipped out of his numb hands and hit the wet ground below. Soon, he was coughing so hard that fresh blood was running down his chin. Nick wheezed and slowly fell backwards off my blade, getting soaked on the ground. "Aye, you little shit," he said. I was frozen in place and could only watch his body jerk and twitch while he gasped for air. Eventually, under the wild sky, it became completely still. There were sudden sirens in the night, which woke me up from shock. From far away, bright blue and red lights appeared and moved quickly toward the quarry. When my legs finally warmed up enough, I accidentally tripped over every root and hidden stone as I ran away from the horrible scene. Somehow, I got back home safely and without being caught, where I sat down on my front door and sobbed. I still had Nick's blood on my hands and clothes, making them look like a gross Halloween costume. After the initial shock wore off, I understood that my new life had just started. No matter what Nick did, I was now a killer and would have to carry this terrible guilt for the rest of my life.